Hi, you guys. I wanted to talk to you about depression and making changes. So, as both my kids know, depression is something that I've struggled with longer than I have had children. And I have had to make changes in how I deal with my depression. So, for the longest time, it was just feeling sad. And then it progressed into um, feeling like maybe suicide was the answer, and that would be my go to. And as my kids have gotten older, or as I have um, some more little kids, I have had to make changes in how I deal with depression. So I've had to I've had to pivot and shift from uh, really really giving into any thoughts about suicide and changing those to just be, lay down and breathe it out. Just spend, just breathe through the next 5 seconds. Just breathe through the next minute. Um, if you feel like dying, just lay in bed and watch TV and pretend that you're dead. And eventually, you'll get out of this rut, and you'll can continue living. So that was some of the changes that I've made around depression. And I've recently found myself deciding that I'm going to make even greater changes around feeling down. And that is that I think that instead of laying in bed and just breathing it out, I'm going to see if I can avoid giving into that and maybe going on my treadmill or doing yoga. So instead of just breathing it out, I'm going to make some changes. I'm going to pivot through it. You know, changes are really important, but they're really, really difficult to make. And sometimes it's the very hardest thing to do is to make a change. I'd like to use myself as an example. My go-to response in life has often been yelling. You know, I'm no stranger to yelling. I'm no stranger to that being the number, like your first response to being upset has been yelling. And that's not everybody's experience, but that's mine. And yelling and confrontation comes very easily to me. And I sometimes it just actually feels really nice to yell. However, for people who that's not their experience, that's a very disruptive sort of way to problem solve. And so I have had to change that way of problem solving. And I remember the first time that I decided that I must make this change. I decided that I had to make the change because I didn't want to raise my children, Bria, and my two older kids, where I was constantly yelling at them. And I remember the first time that I decided to bite my tongue. Oh my gosh, it was so hard. I thought, if I don't start yelling right now, then nobody is going to understand how upset I am or the need for there to be some kind of a solution. I must yell, but I have decided that I must make this change. I must raise my kids differently. I must bite my tongue. I remember that first time biting my tongue. It was really, really hard, but I'll tell you, it's been years of choosing to speak calmly or choosing to just take a minute before yelling and then not yelling. And I find it very easy now to refrain from yelling when I'm really upset, which is a really exciting change. And so change is good, but change is hard. Um, and I think that one of the big things that helps us to make permanent changes is deciding that it's not something that we should do, it's something that we must do. So, my standards for how I behaved had to be raised. I had to raise my standards for myself. I had to raise the standard of how I was going to deal with things. And it wasn't that I should raise it, it's that I must. I must make these change. Same thing around depression. It wasn't that I should find a new way of dealing with it. It's that I must. I must find a new way of dealing with feelings of suicide because I must stay here. I must remain present for my kids. My kids are probably, as much as I upset them and as much as maybe they think that I'm annoying or sometimes my requests of them are difficult, they still love me and I'm still better for them being here than not. And so, you know, if anybody out there is dealing with depression, I know you may feel very alone. You're not alone. It's a real thing. Try to breathe through it. Find a good show on Netflix or in my case, I'll be walking out my treadmill starting now instead of some other choices. And when it comes to change, I'd like to encourage you guys to make it a must. Find something that really fires you up and you must change. Not that you should change, you must change. You must become more flexible because it will make you happier and the people around you happier. You must find a new way to deal with depression because being in a rut is exhausting. You must. So make your changes not a should, make your changes a must, raise your standards, and just know that you're not alone. And mom loves you. I think you're brilliant. I think you're amazing. I love you so much, and I want to see you thrive. All right. That's all I have to say about that. Have a great day, you guys. Bye-bye.